Welcome to Learn Jazz Bass with Matt Rybicki. I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about the essential bass line related to the tune Killer Joe today. And essential bass lines series is something I've been doing over time on my channel, where I'm talking about bass parts that we all should know as bass players. There's a playlist on my channel if you'd like to check that out, to see ones you haven't seen before. So this is something we need to know, but it's got a little quirk to it, which is that we think we know what Killer Joe is, the Killer Joe bass line, but it's a little bit more than that. So I talked about the Cliche bass line to Killer Joe in another video I did and an associated course about walking bass hooks, things that you can use anytime. And when you've got chords that cycle back and forth a whole step away from each other, you can use this Cliche bass line that we think of with Killer Joe. We should know this cliche though, because it's oftentimes expected of us, and you probably have played it a million times if you did any sort of jazz playing in your early life, in high school, so on and so forth. This is kind of what they would put as the bass line for Killer Joe for students. So, but it's important to know. So let's go through it and review it really quickly. The idea is we're going, in this instance, Killer Joe, between a C7 chord and a B flat 7 chord. It goes back and forth. And this pattern just kind of can repeat over and over again. It starts on the root of C, so we're playing C here. It doesn't have to be in this octave, but this C here, and then we go down to the fifth, which is G. You can play it open or closed. I often play it closed because it allows you to transpose it to other keys quickly. So C, G, back to C, that's beat 3 of bar 1. And then to approach the B flat, we're gonna go a half step down. So C, B natural. Now here's the downbeat of B flat 7. Downbeat there. That is root, fifth, root, and then a half step up. So root, fifth, root, back to C. That's the general generic thing, and you can put it anywhere in any key. F, right? G. If the chords go between G and F. Chord quality is important, but you can get away with it in a lot of instances if those chords keep moving back and forth. So that's the main thing we should know. But I wanted to bring your attention to the two famous recordings that exist of Killer Joe. The first is a Benny Golson co-led album called Meet the Jazz Tet, and it may be the first recording of this. I'm not 100% sure on that. And the other is a Quincy Jones album called Walking in Space, and that has Ray Brown on bass. The Meet the Jazz Tet album, which is Art Farmer and Benny Golson, who is the composer of the tune, Benny Golson. They're the leaders, and Art Farmer's brother, Addison Farmer, is playing bass on that record, Meet the Jazz Tet. I want to take a little aside here and just point out, if you are looking for something that is easy to transcribe, choose the Addison Farmer performance of Killer Joe. The notes are so clear, the intonation is absolutely impeccable. You can hear it so well. You can do it, as some of this I did, of this one chorus, I did without even my instrument. It's so clear what it is. You can also do it with piano easily. It's completely in tune and just sounds great. So I would recommend checking that out if you're looking for something to transcribe or at the beginning of your transcription journey. The Ray Brown one is absolutely fabulous, and I have it in my book, Ray Brown Legendary Jazz Basses from Hal Leonard. I've talked about that before. I have the complete transcription in there, but it's got more, there's more busyness and a little more technical challenges in there. In both of them, here's the overall part. In both of them, that Cliche line, or lower, octave lower, that line only happens once or twice in the entire tune. And when we're given it as high schoolers, it's like play that the entire time. It really, that actual line only occurs in the middle or towards the end in Ray Brown's of the actual tune. So, you know, it's this weird thing of like, we have to know this cliche that's actually not played on these famous recordings. So talking about the bass lines themselves, if we look at the later one, the Ray Brown one, what he's got going on here is very similar in practice to the Addison Farmer version with some slight tweaks. There's a little more rhythmic variation, a few more eighth notes, as you see in, you know, bar 8 and in the last A section and so on and so forth. There's more eighth notes. We've also got some triplet figures, some triplet ornaments in there. One of the ones in bar, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, in bar 11 to 12, he's using a rake, open G to F to open A, which is then slurred to B flat. So one strike with the hand across, B, da, do, da, all, and it's not re-struck here. It's actually G to F, right? That kind of feel. This kind of thing exists, and in the full performance of this, which I can't include in the PDF here because of my agreement with Hal Leonard. I'm sure you can get a copy of this full transcription if you really want it. There is a lot of really neat things that Ray is doing in here, including probably, to me, one of the most definitive long triplet figures. That's really, really great. So that's one thing about Ray's piece. He's also choosing sometimes to not have the root on the downbeat, which we know is acceptable, but he is doing that more than Addison Farmer is. So we've got a little bit more ambiguity in the harmony, slightly. What's common in the intro head for both of them is we have this this beginning 4 bars of essentially just the bass setting up the tune, and also in the bridge, part of it, the majority of those bars are played arco in both Ray and Addison Farmer. Just whole notes, so it's not too hard, although Ray does this little thing where he slides down, which you probably heard me do. And it's a little bit of that in and of itself is a little bit unusual, right? That exists in these tunes from the 50s and 60s, that we've got arco in the middle. And also the fact that the bridge itself that Benny Golson wrote is so distinctly different than the rest of the tune. It's just this suspension of time as the bridge. In the performance, in the solos, they keep walking through there, which is cool, but it's just an interesting little arrangement thing. So that's something to note as you sort of work on this. Now the Addison version is really cool. Besides being easy to hear, you can check out it for yourself if you'd like, and I'll try to put on screen here, the number of ways that he is finding variation within a narrow band of expectations of playing the roots on the downbeats. Remember, these are only 2 chords. It's going back and forth. I'm talking about in the A sections. It's going back and forth between C7 and B flat 7, C13 and B13 technically. He's playing the root on every downbeat, but notice how many different ways that Addison comes up with to get from one root to the next. He's not repeating the 2-bar idea maybe more than once. And on top of that, there is nothing but chord tones or approach notes, chromatic approach notes, that get from one to the next. So again, the goals are put a root on the downbeat and get there by a chord tone or a half step, essentially. And he is finding all these variations in one chorus, which exactly exemplifies what we're trying to do when we create walking lines. In my course, 8 Weeks to the Jam Session, I am asking this of the students, to make sure that you are hitting the root on the downbeat, which is not always required, but when we are learning how to do it, we want to give ourselves a rule. That's the rule, hit on the downbeat. Well, how many ways can you get from point A to point B? How many variations can you come up with when you involve a chord tone and let's just say an octave, right? So root 5th, but that 5th can be up or down, etc., etc. And so, etc., etc. So Addison really demonstrates many ways to get between these two things. If we look at the first 4 bars even, it's got variation right there. Starts out with this generic, but then immediately. So that is the generic thing, but he split the generic cliche I'm talking about, but he splits the B flat to B natural down the octave. His bar 3, just root, 5th, half note approach back to C. Now Now there in bar 3 and also towards the end at the last A section, the chord is C7, but he very, very clearly plays a B natural instead of a B flat. B flat would be the flat 7 of a dominant chord. He doesn't play that, he plays B natural. I think his hands are just sort of moving involuntarily in a sense. Maybe it was a conscious choice, I'm not sure. But essentially I would look at it as a little bit of a very forgivable mistake. Technically we don't usually want to play a natural 7 on a dominant chord, that being the B natural as opposed to B flat. We don't generally want to do this, but you can get away with it for a variety of reasons. One might be that because they are 13 chords, there are extensions of a 9 and a 13 on this dominant chord, it has, to me, a more sort of major dominant sound, that meaning, I don't know how else to describe it. If you had a flat 9 and a flat 13, or a flat 9, sharp 9, and a flat 5 or something, like it's gonna be a lot of crunch. It's a more consonant sound for a dominant chord, which usually has some tension to it, but giving it the natural 9, the natural 13 gets closer to a major chord. So it's like that natural 7 would sound, I think, more funky if the chord were a C7 flat 9 or a C altered chord. That natural 7, depending on context, could be weird or not. So again, if we go to the second A section, root, 5th, root, here he's playing the 4th, F, the 4th degree of C major, but that sets up the B flat to come. That's the sort of a 5th away from the B flat. Again, over and over and over again, in almost every 2 measures, he's finding different ways to get between these 2 static points, essentially. And there's more to come in the whole of the performance. So, in summary, we need to know this cliche, but I think it's also really a great study to check out what the masters are doing to provide variation where the harmony is really static, is really still, just going in between these 2 chords. I hope that this short video was helpful for you, as always. Check below for links for a free PDF, the courses I mentioned, the other video I mentioned, and so on. Always remember, straight ahead and strive for tone.